first with the latest news every 30 minutes.
The administration is weighing a number of options that could expose our troops to more danger.
News Talk KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Whole Tree Care. Road projects are, as usual, amping up this summer, according to Cache County Executive David Zook on KVNU's For the People program last week. Zook said the county's Council of Governments, or COG, which is composed of all the mayors, the 19 mayors, along with Zook, are distributing a record amount of transportation dollars, primarily to the towns and cities for road projects.
So we just met recently, and we authorized $7 million to be made available, which is the most ever, so we'll have $7 million available. So to all the cities out there, sharpen your pencils and get ready to turn in your grant applications, because we'll have a process throughout this year where all of the cities can decide what their biggest transportation priorities are.
The next step is they can formally apply for those funds,
and then all of us mayors on the COG, we will score those applications, we'll rank them, and then we'll award the money sometime by the end of this year. And then next summer, those projects will be under construction.
He said when it comes to solid waste service, they've been talking to the cities about forming an interlocal agency where all the cities outside Logan and the county would join together to create an agency that would contract out or even provide solid waste pickup themselves. KVNU News Time is 5:06. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy, low in the low 50s overnight, and then mostly sunny and warm tomorrow, mid-80s for the high, and then sunny, hot, around 90 degrees on Friday. It's been to 74, it's 73 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. Contact their Cache Valley team to protect what's yours at northernsteelbuilding.com. Value from concept to construction. Call 435-677-7300.
They say diamonds are the way to a woman's heart, but so is a well-kept yard. Kudos to you, you edger of edges taking care of the hedges. But what about those large mature trees?
Yeah, these way up here.
A real man isn't afraid to ask for a little help. No worries. Whole Tree Care has got you covered. They trim and shape large trees and fruit trees, remove stumps and more. Let Whole Tree Care do the heavy lifting. Call 760-6587 and ask for their radio discount. 760-6587.
KVNU News Time 5:07. Members of the Logan City Council considered a proposed pay raise with few questions and a minimum of fuss Tuesday evening. That means council members will likely vote on a pay raise of more than $10,000 for Mayor Holly Daines and a pay hike of more than $1,500 for themselves at their next meeting. Ambry Darley, the city's human resources director, said compensation for Logan elected officials lags behind that of other similar municipalities because the local council refused to approve pay hikes for a decade after the nationwide economic collapse in 2008. Barring some unexpected change, the city ordinance will be approved at the city council's next meeting on June 21st. You can see how the numbers break down at CacheValleyDaily.com. KVNU News Time is 5:08.
Covering all the news. Stay with 610 AM and 102.1 FM. News Talk KVNU.
You want to feel important.
You want to be part of something bigger, something that matters and can help change things.
You want to feel like you belong.
We know. We felt that way too. And that's why we did something about it.
We aren't just Army National Guard soldiers. We are normal people just like you.
But our part-time service in the Army National Guard means we get to be more.
When our communities are in need, we get the chance to stand up and do something about it.
We get to serve in our own region and help the people we call neighbors.
From the mountains of Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, and Utah.
The deserts of Arizona and Nevada. The Pacific coasts of Washington, Oregon, and California.
To the wilderness of Alaska and islands of Hawaii and Guam.
We are here for our hometowns.
And together, we can make a difference.
Take on your legacy. Visit NationalGuard.com to find out more.
Sponsored by the Utah Army National Guard. Aired by the Utah Broadcasters Association and this station.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People, Hour 2 of today's show. It is beautiful Wednesday, June 8th here in Cache Valley. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well, and we are kicking off Hour 2 with a very special guest. It is time for another installment of something regular we've done here on the show, and thanks again to Congressman Blake Moore for making the time to do these. Our listeners love them. They aren't something that happen in every part of the state, and I like to think we're kind of leading the way here in the 1st Congressional District with, once again, a radio town hall with Congressman Blake Moore, and also a shout-out to our friends at KVEL in the Uinta Basin area who are also broadcasting as we move through this town hall. Although, Congressman Moore, you mentioned, the district boundaries change with the Utah redistricting process. This district is a large one and spans a lot of different areas. And you are there in D.C. trying to be a voice for, a lot of different interests, right?
Yeah, I think one of the coolest ways to describe it is when you look at the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy is a very diverse economy. You've got energy, you've got tech, you've got tourism, you've got ag, manufacturing. Like, I'm literally explaining the 1st District's economy.
Sure.
You look at from Park City to the Uinta Basin to, in Utah in general, but also, the manufacturing that there's here, defense. I mean, this is why we experience when the nation experiences some economic hardship or downturn, we tend to be we tend to better weather that than other states. Well, because we've got really solid fiscal conservative policies sort of driving it, solid balanced budgets, rainy day funds, things like that. Good strong workforce, good education. It's all that contributes. But when you have a dynamic and a very diverse workforce or economy, it mimics the U.S. economy. So it's a really, really amazing thing to represent, and something that I focused a lot on. And I know there's a lot of concern about how the economy is playing out right now, and I'm sure we'll get into some of that. So, yeah, but
sure.
Yes, definitely there's lots of different angles to be involved in back here in Washington when you're supporting a district such as the 1st District and in Utah in general.
It is, easily one of the most diverse districts geographically, as you mentioned, economically, demographically, even probably in the state. It's unique in that way. You're also there, and we should let listeners know this as well, because we're flattered for you to hold to the date and time. But Congressman Moore is actually, so Congress is in session as we speak. He may at a certain point have to whisk away for a bit to cast a vote on legislation as it comes up. If that happens, we'll go to a quick 2-minute break, but he's with us throughout the second hour here. We did, Congressman Moore, ask listeners to send questions in as well, and of course they can join us by phone. This radio town hall is an opportunity for you to get to know what's going on in D.C. But I know from following a little bit today, well, let me just put it this way, Congressman Moore, it's been a pretty busy day, right? It's been a pretty busy week.
Yeah, my entire 17 months back here, it's been never a dull moment, that's for sure. But I'll have to comment, this isn't the first time I've been back and forth with votes while we've been doing this town hall. There must be maybe a good luck charm about doing the KVNU.
I think
with the basin town halls that we tend to be in this situation a lot. So
it may have been our first interview. I remember we had it scheduled, and you were literally running through the tunnel to get to the phone in time to talk to us. And but that's life out there, right?
But that's his life back here. That is exactly right. And you just have to roll with it, because if you can never plan when you're in session, you can never pre-plan to really nail it down. So we'll always just make do with what we've got. And then I love being here. I love doing these with this. It's always been a good experience to share what's going on and provide the context.
Sure. This is, And it's an opportunity for us to have a chance to talk to you, and these are unscripted conversations. It's a great opportunity for listeners. And we did have a lot of questions come in. There was one, Congressman, that I wanted to be sure we got to, and so we'll start with that one today because it's a great question from a listener that is kind of more about Congress in general, but would love to get your take on this. But a listener emailed in and said that she had just finished reading an article about civic education in Utah, a poll that was done about Utah adults by BYU political science professors. And short version of this, it kind of revealed that people are a little cynical right now. They aren't convinced that their vote matters. They aren't convinced that Congress is getting things done on their behalf. And she wanted to know your take on that as you're out there doing the work. Does it just appear that way? Is this an impression that is driven through the media, or is there a bit of that?
No, I would say that as a taxpayer myself, I have many concerns about how much grandstanding and inability there is in this environment in solving our nation's biggest problems, and that's what it boils down to. And again, our debt and deficit, the deficits that we run each year, immigration. Obviously inflation comes from a lot of issues, but it can come from economic policy that's been driven. Our energy policy, like these all get marked down. I mean, today, even in Second Amendment gun legislation, like it's all so hyper partisan.
Sure.
And on the flip side, we'll do a bunch of votes in just a minute. Probably like 10 of them will go under suspension. Huge broad bipartisan support. These are 2/3. What you call when you vote under suspension is meaning, these are largely collaborative. They work together. These issues will be voted on, and they'll be in overwhelming fashion. They'll pass and be very bipartisan. I've led bills that have gotten to that point. Still, the majority of what goes on and gets done here is that I have two thoughts that'll kind of boil it down, and maybe it creates more discussion. But the big issues are the issues that garner more attention.
Sure.
And I'm worried that we've created an environment back here that we thrive on that, and we want that type of controversy. We want to bash the other side so much that we're unwilling to find that common ground on certain items. I mean, you saw even this year, infrastructure became that, right?
Sure.
And we've talked about that ad nauseum. It seems like it was a million years ago that took place, but it was something that and I'll be very candid. In the House, in the Senate, it was a different deal, but in the House, the majority, so Speaker Pelosi, I mean, they latched onto that as like, oh, okay, there's enough support to get this passed. We've got to leverage this piece of legislation, infrastructure, that could be largely popular, and we've got to tie it to another big, huge agenda that we know will be much more difficult. And so those kind of games that get played, you don't necessarily see that play out in our state legislature. And I think one of the key issues is in our state legislatures, and probably many across the state. I haven't done the research on this, but you're dealing with more single issue, single vote type of stuff. We get a lot of things packaged into the legislation back here in Washington, and it becomes very difficult. But those big ticket items are what the two parties are trying to, use against each other so they can remain or get into power. As I came into this, there was a part of me that was like, interesting. So think back to November 2020. We've got a very narrow margin of majority for Speaker Pelosi's in a Democrat-led House.
Sure. And
there's a very narrow majority for a Mitch McConnell-led Republican Senate. That was November 2020. And then when Republicans lost the two Georgia Senate seats, which they should never have lost, that was just politics at its worst, actually.
Sure.
And all the drama that was ensuing during that point, during that runoff, when we lost that, all of a sudden you had a Democrat-controlled Senate and a House, even with the most narrow margins we've ever had in history. You would think that would naturally make it so there was more collaboration. You have narrow margins. There's very limited, things could vote. You could pass quite a bit of legislation, solve some big problems with narrow margins. But it turned into the opposite because you had the White House, House, and Senate all under one party control. And then it led to a huge, very strong progressive push. Democrats thought, okay, we've got this ability to get legislation through on what's called budget reconciliation, and we're going to go big. So they went big. They went on first month, $2 trillion American Rescue Plan bill.
Sure.
And that triggered what inflation, what we're seeing today. Now, years and years and years of deficit spending from both parties over the last 20 years has added fuel to that, and our monetary policy has added fuel to that. But what triggered it is when you did that bill, it suppressed the workforce. We already had supply chain issues. We've got 11 million jobs unfilled right now, and we can't even get those back to being filled. We're now having major workforce issues. But you add that much monetary supply and that much stimulus money to an overheating economy anyway, a few months down the road, all of a sudden inflation, and we all could have predicted it. That's why it's such strong opposition to that one, and it was so partisan. There you go. So, in answer to the question, in summary, yes, big issues. They're not getting solved right now.
Sure.
I think in some cases, divided government helps solve some of those big issues. And, we can maybe talk more about that.
Sure. This is something, this actually leads us perfectly into the next question from one of our listeners that was sent in for your time with us today. Because a listener said, and I didn't get a name, they didn't provide a name, so I apologize, I can't tell you that, but they said that they actually were among a group of people who met with you while you were here last week. You toured some of the more remote parts of the state, Corinne, Park Valley, Snowville, and you were talking with ranchers and those in agriculture in the area about some of the things that are on their minds when it comes to water scarcity. They're hearing a lot from the state, they're hearing a lot from the federal government, and there's a lot of lack of answers and worry on what happens next. So one of the individuals that was there during your visit last week emailed in and said a question that he regretted not asking while you were there. How does this conversation you had last week then translate into legislative action? Can it translate into legislative action? I thought that was a great question.
It's an awesome question, and I think it's the right question, and something that I want to be able to take back in my time here and be able to take back to the district and say, hey, here's how this input that I collected actually made a difference. I have an example I'm going to share. It's not about agriculture, so I apologize there, and maybe we'll try to think through some of that, but it's about cyber. But let me just quickly say the one thing I wish I could have taken back after seeing the dry farms out in Box Elder, after seeing wheat fields, tons of wheat fields out there that had initially had a potential, and then to not have the rain just destroys that. And then we're now throwing cattle on there just to get every ounce of value because those wheat fields aren't going to produce.
Sure.
We're not going to be able to harvest. Really, really concerning. To rely so heavily on rain that is just not there as much as it used to be. We're seeing some very, very dry years, and it's been tough to predict that. And I feel horrible with that. I wish that I could have taken from that meeting an ability to make it rain. And I do not have that yet figured out in Congress yet, how to make it rain. It's rained every day I've been in D.C. since I've been back. So
yeah, you get East Coast getting all of our water.
Half of the country figures it out. a pipeline from the East Coast to the West Coast. I held three cyber roundtables. So I sit on cyber subcommittee for defense and the Defense Armed Services Committee. And
sure.
There is a really good network of companies in Utah, small businesses that are really innovative and they're growing, and they've got plenty of private sector work. American Express, financial services, and all these different types of companies need cyber security work. So there's tons of private sector work, but these individuals care about the mission. They care about our national security. They're seeing an overlap with defense-related work, and they communicated to us like, hey, here's something. Like, companies need to be able to better report some of the issues that they're facing. Now, naturally, you don't want to, right? You don't want to have to admit some vulnerability, or you don't want to have to, communicate what your issues are, because then you don't want that for the bad press or for all these little reasons, and they're all warranted reasons,
sure.
And privacy and things like that. But in order for us to become more resilient, they made it very clear. All of these companies have said we need a better reporting mechanism on how to submit this type of stuff.
That's interesting.
That, in essence, is the Cybercrimes Metrics Act that I co-led with a rep from Virginia, her name's Spanberger, and we co-led that bill, and it was just signed into law. Which, in this environment, it's just not happening that much. There's a lot of suspension bills. There's a lot of good things that are going on, like I mentioned, but I'm really proud of the work that our team has been able to do to make actionable, I don't just get marred down in messaging bills. And, some people can do that, and sometimes it makes you feel good because you're doing a messaging bill. But, I want to do real legislation that gets at it. And then the messaging bills that I do, I actually think are very substantive, and that's what we're doing on some of the energy stuff. And they may not pass, and it may not get a markup in committee, but it is good, and it would be immediately addressed if we were in the majority. So I'll have the legislation done, and we'll take that. So obviously all the energy concerns went straight to us. We were already aware of it. We already knew this would play out after we saw President Biden's initial energy push, or his anti-energy push,
sure.
Keystone Pipeline, secretarial order, that type of stuff. And so we've done a lot of that. But that cybercrime bill is us meeting with local constituents, and it gets directly into that. And so that's how it works. What we can potentially do on the ag space, there's lots of different things that are very concerning to people. Our consumer, or our producer, sorry if there's going to be some background noise. Our producers don't have control over pricing. The meat packing industry makes it's a difficult thing to navigate, and they just don't have the ability to really impact their prices, and so they're sort of stuck with what market rates are.
Sure.
Right? And there's bills that you can look back over time, and this is one from that visit. Look back over time, what's happened to cattle price. You can directly look at some of the legislation that's taken place, and you can see how it's impacted that, and not always for the better, right? And it's becoming worse and worse.
Sure.
So that's an example outside of ag, because I know that question was geared toward ag, but how you can go about doing it. So your input does matter. Working with groups like Farm Bureau, working with other industry-related groups that get policy and they've got good ideas and they've built good stuff from the ground up, and especially if we've got good things that we've done at the state level, like I want to be able to take that and where appropriate and where I think is constitutional, we can implement also at the federal level. So
this is, I hope the listener found that answer as encouraging as I did, because what I heard you say, Congressman, is that if you get the right people talking, solutions are still available and can still happen. And that's something that, is at times hard to feel is a thing at the federal level that can still happen. But that getting the right people talking, you can lead to solutions, and that's going to be needed. Appreciate a listener sending this in, because agricultural questions, water questions, all of this stuff, how Congress goes about addressing some of these things, so critical right now. And just want to remind listeners as well, this is our opportunity to ask questions of Congressman Blake Moore here in Hour 2 of today's show. So if you have a question, a lot have been sent in already, and we'll get to all those, as I promised those listeners I would. And you can also call them in. 753-5868. Congressman Blakemore, our guest here for a radio town hall. You can also find out more about everything we've just discussed from the congressman at blakemore.house.gov. Also a candidate running for re-election, so the campaign pages I've linked to on our Facebook page as well. You can find them all there. On Twitter, some photos from his visit to Snowville and Corinne that we just discussed there a little bit, thanks to a listener sending in a question about that visit. Just some great stuff. If you want to see everything we're talking about for yourself, I've linked to it all on our Facebook page. And Congressman Moore will be with us for some additional time. I know he's got a busy day out there, so we're trying to accommodate both the needs of his schedule, having to be a congressman and in an active session as we speak, and also our listeners who have sent their questions in. So be patient. We'll get to your questions. Congressman Moore, appreciate you taking the time today, and we'll be back with more after this news break with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:30, and the news is brought to you by Roof Rescue. A reward is being offered for information regarding the whereabouts of a 19-year-old Box Elder County man last seen near the Nevada-Utah border. Dylan Rounds was working on a farm in Lucin, Utah, and was last seen May 28th near Montello, Nevada. Rounds is described as being 5'10", 160 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing jeans, a dark shirt, and a flannel jacket. The Box Elder County Sheriff's Office reports they are continuing to follow up on tips as the search enters the third week. They are continuing to call his disappearance an active missing person investigation. Multiple agencies have provided assistance. Family and friends have been circulating information and photos of Rounds on social media in addition to organizing search parties. They claim there are suspicious circumstances surrounding his disappearance. Deputies report Rounds' cell phone and wallet have not been found. None of the vehicles on the farm are missing. Family members said a pair of boots located roughly 100 yards from where his grain truck was parked were determined to be his. Rounds' mother, Candace Cooley, lives in Twin Falls, Idaho, and his father, Justin Rounds, lives in Yukon, Idaho. Together, they are offering a $20,000 reward to anyone who finds their son or knows where he could be. Anyone with information regarding Rounds' whereabouts is asked to contact the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office at 435-734-3800. A team of BYU students created an app with a mission to prevent sexual assault and dating violence. The app is called Sava and is intended to help people who may feel uncomfortable or unsafe on a date. The app was created by the group who said they teamed up to empower and protect women through the app. Carolyn Allen, the CEO of Sava, told KUTV you can receive a fake text or a fake call to get you out of the situation. The app is especially helpful for people on first dates after meeting on a dating app. Users can set up Sava to check in on you throughout the date. Through the app, users can contact police if in danger or have the app send an exit strategy, a disguised text or call that has a preloaded message of your choice. The app mimics what a lot of people are already doing in text groups with their friends. The Sava team said their long-term goal is to make dating safer. With sexual assault prevention resources and education, Sava is available now through your app store. And a rash of gun violence in Salt Lake City had the police chief speaking out Tuesday, hoping steps can be taken to prevent future shootings. This comes after one person was killed and 3 others wounded during a shooting at an apartment complex near Redwood Road Monday evening. During a press conference Tuesday afternoon, Salt Lake City Chief Mike Brown did not mince words, saying the U.S. has an epidemic of both gun crimes and gun violence. Chief Brown shared some numbers which he says are concerning when it comes to gun crimes in Salt Lake City. So far this year, he said there have been about 30 robberies in which a firearm was used. He went on to say there have been nearly 60 aggravated assaults involving a gun and more than 28 drive-by shootings since January 1st. He said his department has worked to confiscate countless guns and get them off the streets. Chief Brown said the number one thing they can do is partner with the community to prevent this type of gun violence and to work on reducing all crimes. KBNU News Time is 5:34.
This is Mark with Roof Rescue. Most of us don't think about our roofs very often until you see shingles on the ground or water drips through your ceiling. Keep your roof in tip-top shape to protect your home, your biggest investment. Roof Rescue uses only the highest quality materials with experienced workmanship guaranteed to last. Even if you were denied by your insurance company the first time, a free re-evaluation can be made. Visit roofrescueusa.com to schedule your free consultation in Cache Valley and surrounding areas. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
KBNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy, overnight low in the low 50s, and then mostly sunny, hot mid-80s. Tomorrow, sunny and hotter still. Friday and Saturday, high temperatures around 90 degrees. It's been to 74 with the cloud cover today. It's 74 degrees currently at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Logan Dental Associates. Make your appointment at Logan Dental Associates with Dr. Brandon Priebe, Curtis Taylor, Anthony Larson, or Dr. Paul Harris. Or if it's more convenient, visit them at their Cherry Creek Dental Office in Richmond, a full-service dental office to take care of the entire family. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru for Morris Columbus Travel and Apple Vacations. Run away to the sunny beaches of Hawaii, Mexico, and the Caribbean with double discounts, including a guaranteed air and hotel discount. Then we drop your price up to another $150 per booking. For the best travel deals on the planet, call Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
Hi, this is Eric Franson, Vice President of Cache Valley Media Group. We love supporting local business and are proud to support the Center Street Market in downtown Logan every Wednesday during the summer. Beginning Wednesday, May 25th, Center Street Market will be open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Wednesday, and all of the merchants will be local businesses from right here in Cache Valley. Cache Valley Media Group invites everyone to the Center Street Market in downtown Logan.
Meet me downtown. Meet me in downtown Logan.
Preston Golf and Country Club is taking registration for their summer program. There are multiple options available depending on skill level, age, and commitment. Parents may find all the information about the program on the Preston Junior Golf Program Facebook page. You may also register your youth through that page and then pay the first day. The summer-long program runs every Wednesday for 8 weeks starting June 8. Individual and small group lessons are also available upon request. Ladies' clinics start on June 5th and run throughout July and August every Wednesday night at 5:30. For more information, call 208-852-2408.
This is Ryan, My Mattress. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with online bed-in-a-box mattresses. If value is the combination of price and quality, these beds are not a good value. They cost about $1,000 and they last about 3 years. That's not a very good ratio. At My Mattress, you can get a $799 Sealy Posturepedic that will last you 10 plus years. The best value is at My Mattress. Isn't it time to sleep exceptionally?
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Town Hall with Congressman Blake Moore here on the show. If you have a comment or a question, of course, give us a call. Also asking every question our listeners emailed in advance. I want to preface this next question for Congressman Moore with a little bit of a description for our listeners. There is a newsletter that you can subscribe to from Congressman Moore's office. It goes out pretty regularly, and you can do that at blakemore.house.gov. And Congressman Moore, a listener emailed in, said that it had been mentioned in your last email, and they just wondered if they could get some more information about it. And I believe we talked about this last time you were with us a bit. but they wanted to know more about the Public Lands Access Act and how that's being treated by the rest of Congress.
You're talking about MapLand, correct?
That's right. The digital mapping project, which I'll be biased on this one. I'm a huge fan of. It's overdue. Yeah, listener just wanted to know if you've gotten responses from, other members of Congress, how that's moving along. Or I'm sorry, from representatives in other districts. I read their email wrong. I'm sorry. They wanted to know how others are reacting to it.
Well, very good, because it passed with overwhelming support in the House. The Senate even got it through. I just was at a veterans, so about 9 bills were signed into law yesterday, and I got to go to the White House for the signing of these bills. One of those 9 bills was the candy bomber. Everybody in Utah knows the candy bomber.
Sure.
Gail Halverson, really, really awesome experience. So that bill was just signed into law, and it got signed. So, so overwhelming. So with the MapLand Act, we had overwhelming support, and the Senate passed it through. And I was at that signing with Joe Manchin, Senator Manchin, maybe the most powerful guy in all of Washington.
Yeah, right.
What he's been able to
right now, right?
do as he straddles. Yeah, especially as he straddled. President Biden made a funny joke. He goes, I'm getting a little older. I have a tough time seeing the entire audience, but I can definitely see old Senator Manchin right there. It was pretty good. It was pretty funny. But I got a chance to tell him personally, thank you for getting MapLand through the Senate so quickly, because oftentimes things definitely get marred down.
Sure.
So that is fully passed, and that's been authorized and shouldn't have a problem getting implemented here. And again, to not bury the lead, the thing that's so great about this is think if you're a hunter, or you hike a lot, and you run into where the public lands are. We have 9 million acres, over 9 million acres, that are all of those access points, and that mapping and all that data is still stuck on paper maps, and they're still stuck in the Department of Interior and the agriculture offices, and they're just stagnant there. Meanwhile, we've had industry develop these awesome apps and these tools that you can use to access this type of stuff. And the most popular one that I've heard from a lot of folks is OnX, right? And OnX is a really popular hunting app.
Sure.
To know, where you can go, where is it legal, where can you access these points. And what that's going to do is that's going to bring a ton of paper maps to the digitized world. It gets that process going so you can access that via digital means. So it's a simple concept, right? If there was a company that existed that had a bunch of maps that you wanted to invest and go make that available to people, it would be a relatively simple process. But when you're dealing with multiple agencies, people that don't necessarily care that much about outdoor recreation, in some states it's a lot more important than others. But we were able to use whatever, political pressure through our committee. Natural Resources has been really great. Our committee head, Mr. Bruce Westerman out of Arkansas, was a big supporter of this. So he was able to get it through. Democrat leadership saw the value in it. And I co-sponsored it with a lot of people out west from Colorado.
Sure.
Some Democrats from Colorado, some Republicans from Idaho. Really strong support, and we've got it. And now it's just going to be watching the process go through, make sure that, it's a very small investment for an industry that, even in Utah, is a $4 billion industry, right?
Oh, yeah.
This will be a great opportunity to enhance that and make it easier for folks. So we'll keep people posted on timing and when you can expect that to play out. We don't have all those specific details. Another bill that I passed was the Medal of Honor Monument Act, and that's going through the Department of Interior process now. So
interesting.
It Congress, you get it appropriated, funders, and then boom, it goes through its agency, and can hopefully get that passed. That particular bill, there's no funding element to it at all, so that should go relatively smoothly over the next year and a half to find a location for it, and then do the designs and go from there. So, but again, I appreciate the concept or the question about MapLand. It's those things are near and dear to our team because in this political environment, to actually get something done, takes some work. and we're thrilled to have been able to do that, and something that's going to benefit hunters and sportsmen and outdoors enthusiasts for years to come.
This is one I'm excited about personally, outdoor enthusiast myself. And as we discussed, when we talked about this, when it was still an idea, Congressman, it's one of those things that you think to yourself, I can't believe no one's thought of this before. It's right there. It just, the process needs to be finished. And here you are. You mentioned appropriations, and that's a great segue into another question coming in from a listener that I love, because I love that people are paying this much attention. Although, I'll be honest with you, Congressman, I suspect this might be a member of a local government entity, maybe. But the question is, as this year continues to play out, and if reelected, you head into 2023, the appropriations process doesn't get as much attention as it probably deserves. It doesn't generate nice headlines on CNN, but it's probably the most important process when it comes to priorities for a district that a congressman or woman might set back there in D.C. Are there any top priorities for you for upcoming or ongoing appropriation requests? And then in parentheses, listener writes, specifically related to things like maybe drought, wildfire, pressing issues facing the state of Utah and the 1st District. It's a great question. Are there, appropriations priorities for you that are pending or that you have planned that might relate to our drought situation, water situation? I know you're in the Western Wildfire Caucus as well.
Absolutely. That is largely, a key part of our role as we work on committees. So one thing, obviously, first and foremost, probably the largest. So real quick, so there's authorization, and then there's appropriations.
Sure.
Just as a quick cursor on that process. Some committees authorize funding for certain things, and then there's the appropriations committee that has a lot of subsections to it that will go and appropriate that money. So they're both part of the process. I serve on Armed Services Committee and Natural Resources. So the areas that I have the most influence are going to be geared towards that. So the first and foremost will be upcoming in a couple of weeks. Will be on our markup for armed services. That is obviously our military budget and our military funding. It's the largest discretionary budget item, not mandatory spending. That's more in healthcare, Social Security. Those are the big expenditures. This healthcare, the armed services one is obviously very large as well, and so we navigate that through the armed services committee. We will authorize certain funding, and then appropriators will decide whether all of that gets finalized. And so we will be focused heavily on things that are important to Hill Air Force Base. Now, they obviously are very important to our national security, the Sentinel program, the F-35 program, and various other, smaller things like housing for military families, or not housing necessarily, but cost of living. There's a lot of those particular priorities that get it played out. So that is always a heavy focus for us, given my committee assignments. Then another huge issue and focus area for us is getting the proper legislation done on energy. We can be a country that reduces emissions and achieves energy independence. The revolution, the shale revolution, leading into 2019, where we became a net exporter. We didn't become a net exporter just because of oil. We became a net exporter because of our enhancements in natural gas, which is it's a cleaner burning technology. Of course, it's not perfect, but in order to diversify your portfolio, you have to invest in the American ingenuity and what we're doing, right? And natural gas is a way that you have to embrace that instead of pull that away. I think that's one of President Biden's biggest failures, and the reason why his approval rating is really, really, really low for a relatively shorter time. It's simply just because he wouldn't address the energy stuff, and he wouldn't address the immigration stuff. And so we'll be doing bills that are trying to focus on that. With regards to wildfires, for us, it's less about authorizing and appropriating money. what I can do and what we have an area of influence is things like the Fire Sheds Act. We've got a couple other fire-related bills that we've got going in, but I think the most important one for us is Fire Shed, which does two things. It reduces the regulation for other states to enter into agreements like we have in Utah with our government agencies.
Sure.
We have really good relationships. Not always. There's some bad relationships, and there's some grazing for one. Grazing is a big issue, and state level folks don't see eye to eye with our federal level folks, and it causes a lot of problems. We're in the thick of it, and there's some really amazing. There's some really good families that are going to get affected by this in cash, and we're working on all that and then navigating it and hopefully getting to some good outcomes here. But this Fire Sheds bill allows for other states to enter into agreements like we have with our federal agencies, because we do a better than average job of reducing wildfire risk.
Sure.
And I want other states to do that, particularly California, particularly Oregon, where we're sucking in their smoke, we're breathing in their smoke all year long, all summer long. And we've got to be able to address that. The other part of that bill actually targets the most extreme risk areas, and how to use data to go into those particular forest areas, identify where the most extreme risk is, and what we can do to mitigate some of that. So it's a really good bill that we're excited about, but we can't get it through right now. We keep pushing it, but I just don't see the Democrat leadership taking it on. It doesn't have enough, per se, climate change aspects to it. Not every bill has to have all of these climate change provisions. We can do things in the acute, more near term, without always having to have everything tied to it. And that's been one really big problem between Republicans and Democrats on committee. It's not a denial of a warming climate change and everything. There's other things that can be done mitigating that. It just doesn't have to be a part of every single bill.
Sure.
And that's kind of a frustrating hang-up for a lot of us.
That is, it's fascinating to get this look, and I have to, as someone who's done this, what I do for a long time, I do have to tip my hat to you, Congressman, for your frankness on these issues and describing to us, more than just the hot button issues that are in the news these days, but the actual process behind all of this. This has been a very illuminating hour in a lot of different ways, and for me, I appreciate taking the time to do it. From our listeners, I appreciate you taking the time to answer their questions, especially on what, again, was already a very busy day for you, I understand, from your staff. For listeners, check it out. Everything we've discussed, you can read more about, including, I want to point to this as well, Congressman Moore, when it comes to energy, actually calling for some of these investments before gas prices were this high, way back in October of 2021. A letter from Congressman Moore on exactly this that we've just discussed. I've linked to it on our Facebook page, not just to say I told you so to anyone else out there, but just to remind everyone that, we actually in Utah are getting ahead of some of these things. Sometimes no one wants to listen. Congressman Blake Moore, again, has been our guest, and you can read more about these issues that we've discussed and others we haven't gotten to in this full hour, even blakemore.house.gov, the site. Sign up for his newsletter there as well. And thank you again to Congressman Blake Moore for you taking the time to give us another full hour of your day, and we'll let you get back to it.
An hour sometimes goes quick.
It does.
Look, folks, there's so much going on. We're tackling every angle of this as we possibly can, and we're going to continue to keep communicating. I do appreciate your mentioning of the newsletter. That is our most sincere way to be able to tell and communicate to our constituents. We get a lot of really good feedback on it. We put a lot of time into it. It's nothing spam related at all. There's no ask. There's no annoying political side of it. It is just policy, what we're doing, areas that we're visiting in the district, but also things we're working on. So thanks for highlighting that. We love to communicate that way with people, and outside of the all the political melee that goes on with communication, we really try to cut underneath all that with that newsletter, and appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you guys sending it out. Sometimes I plan the whole show off of it. So. Congressman Moore, again, appreciate your time, and thanks to your staff as well for helping us organize this event today, all of them, and for listeners for sending their questions in. blakemore.house.gov again for more information, and we'll do this again soon. Thank you to Congressman Moore. Thank you to our listeners, and we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
Ah, that's better. Trade in the stresses of building a new home for relaxation. Visionary Homes Priority is giving you a stress-free building experience. Named the best home builder in northern Utah, Visionary Homes team will guide you seamlessly through the home building process. Call today, 435-228-4702, or visit visionaryhomes.com to learn more about upcoming communities in Nibley, Logan, and Smithfield. Visionary Homes, built for living, built for you.
Independent living, assisted living, home health care. How do you know what's right for your loved one? A visit to Legacy House of Logan is a great place to start. Legacy House is a wonderful place for seniors to be with others who share similar interests. Their various levels of care offer social and recreational activities, delicious meals, medical monitoring, and more in a comfortable home-like environment. Let Legacy House help you help your loved one enjoy the care and comfort they deserve. Learn more at Legacy House of Logan on 1400 North in Logan.
Your local radio stations are here for you. No subscriptions or monthly fees necessary. We're here to give you the news, weather, and traffic you need, and the music you love. But if the foreign-owned record labels get their way, it could stop the music. They want Congress to force radio stations to pay them more money, simply to play their music. Don't let radio go silent. Text LOCAL to 52886 and tell Congress to protect local radio stations. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Thursday edition, Clay and Buck. It's the January 6th hearing days. What are Democrats attempting? Plus, the latest on the Brett Kavanaugh assassination attempt.
We've got a racked and stacked guest schedule for you, too. Mark Morgan, former acting commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, about the border disaster underway. Bill O'Reilly and Ilya Shapiro on why he left Georgetown. That's all coming up.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Thanks again to Congressman Blake Moore for taking the time. This was something we planned more than a year ago to have happen as on a regular basis here on the show. And I got to throw this out there. Congressman Moore has never once canceled on us, which amazes me. We expect him to, right? It can get pretty busy back there in D.C. Even state lawmakers have to cancel on us all the time during the legislative session. But he's never had to. That's nice. A little behind-the-scenes info, though. While we were speaking, and I don't think this was very evident, so I admire the ability of some members of Congress to multitask, Congressman Moore being at least one of them. But he was actually, during that interview, as we were speaking, he was actually going to the floor and casting a vote on a bill that he had previously decided on, but the vote was coming up at an inopportune time. So there were two pieces of legislation that he had decided to support, but the timing of the votes on these pieces of legislation right in the middle of his interview with us. So we had to...
I wonder if he wears sneakers or something. Or
a lot of running back and forth through that tunnel. But yeah, so we had to get a little creative about the timing of our breaks there to allow those votes to happen so we could actually speak on the floor. But yeah, hats off to him. It's nice to see a little... this is where it sort of reminds me of Congressman Bishop a lot, because one of my favorite things about Congressman Bishop is that he would actually tell you how Congress works. A lot of times, you see interviews on CNN with representatives from other states, and or even, unfortunately, one of our representatives here in Utah, and they sort of put this. They try to put the sheen on it. And it is important what they do. I'm not trying to say it isn't at all. It's hugely important. But even even the conversation we just had there with Congressman Moore about the Western Wildfire Caucus and where federal money might be going for mitigation efforts and stuff like that, where it could best be spent, how that might affect grazing rules here in the state and also even energy here in the state. That's hugely important. But it's also it can become so important and so cable newsified that I think people lose touch with the whole process. I know, most of the people I know who don't host a talk radio show and talk about politics every day do lose touch with it, the processes and how it works, and it can become easy to feel pretty cynical about it, to feel like it has nothing to do with you, when in fact it has everything to do with each and every one of you. And so I liked when Congressman Bishop, at the time of his service, would just kind of break it down. Here's what actually happens behind the scenes. And we just got a little of that from Congressman Moore. So I like that. It takes some of the sheen off of it, sure. It's a little messier than we maybe all would like to admit or are comfortable with. But it also shows you that, as Congressman Moore said, sometimes just getting the right people in the right room to talk can lead to some pretty big solutions. In this case, something that might really benefit ranchers here in northern Utah when it comes to drought policy. And how that might affect them. That's our time for